Hello, Ground Passers, and welcome to another episode of Ground Pass. Today, we are going to talk about a highly debated topic. It is time, Nick. It is time to talk about exhibitions. I know it's a hot button issue, but we've come full circle, and it is time.
Did we not talk about it before?
I don't know if we've talked about fully. We probably have talked about exhibitions to some extent, but I think based on the Six Kings Slam this weekend and just all the responses I was getting online, I think it is time to finally let's break it down. Let's break down exhibitions, all the different levels of it. Yes, you are right. We did have a mini moment during Laver Cup, but I think it's time to sort of, break down all the different types of exhibitions, what we think about them, and also give our suggestions of how people should approach watching exhibitions and, what we think about them in general. So, I know it's a hot button topic, everyone, but it's gonna be fun. We're gonna keep it fun and light and joyful. So everyone sit back, relax, and welcome to Ground Pass's take on exhibitions.
Looking forward to
it. So, Nick, as we discussed last week, we are going to be starting every single episode now with a question from the audience. We really loved what happened during our birthday episode. We asked for a bunch of questions specifically for our birthday episode, but we got so many that we couldn't answer all of them there. So we are literally still going through our birthday questions. But if you have a question for Ground Pass about anything at all, please send them in. You can send us a DM on Instagram, on X, Threads, Blue Sky. We're on all of those platforms. You can leave us a comment in the video, in the comment section of this podcast, either on YouTube or wherever it is you're listening to it, or send us an email. Also, we want to hear from you. Send us your questions and we will answer it on the podcast. So this week, we have a question, and this one was from Instagram. And someone asked, what is your stance on pro players and jewelry on court? This is such an interesting question. Nick, I will let you start. What is your stance on pro players and jewelry?
I don't understand why you would have a problem with it. I don't. Why? People wear jewelry when they do sports. I wouldn't, but that's because it would irritate me. This is why I have my own personal thing. If I'm moving around, I want a thing around my neck, bouncing around or whatever. There's part of me that worries about the health and safety of it. You could actually choke yourself just on something. But
yeah,
literally in terms of the visuals of it, absolutely no issue. Do not understand why anybody would have it. I mean, yeah, okay, I don't wear jewelry. You don't see me bringing the bling on the podcast, but you have to kind of take it like some people do want to wear jewelry. And as long as it doesn't affect them being able to compete, which I don't see why it would, why would it be an issue? So yeah, let pro players wear what they want.
Yeah. If you are watching this, if you've watched our podcast ever on video, I wear a lot of jewelry. And it's all small, tiny gold jewelry. But here's the thing, I never take it off. I'm one of those people that if I have to take on and off my jewelry, it's not happening. I cannot deal with the faff of having to take it on, put it off, take it on. No. I shower in it. I sleep in it. And some people say that's not good, but I can't deal with putting it on and taking it off. So I understand pro players who probably maybe have that same issue. They don't want to be taking it on and off. So they just play in their jewelry. I've also seen, for example, I've heard from a lot of players too who kind of especially with their wedding rings or engagement rings, they take them on and off. I think I can't remember, maybe it was Andy Murray.
It was Andy Murray.
Yeah, he took off his wedding ring and he tied it to his shoelace.
He did, yes. He always did, because I think there is the element of, obviously, when you play, you sweat, so obviously it's uncomfortable to play in. Maybe it affects how you grip the racket, but obviously he doesn't want to be without a wedding ring, so he ties it to his shoe, which, if anyone remembers, he got himself into hot water for it a few years ago when he was still playing. Do you remember this, Anastasia?
No, what happened?
His shoes got stolen. Well, stolen. So he played a tournament. He was playing in Indian Wells, which I forget whether it was the
No.
2021 October Indian Wells or the like when it came back to March in 2022. But I think he had a practice and he took his shoes off. He obviously took the shoes off. The wedding ring was still tied to the shoes, and he had them in the car, or like they parked the car at the hotel. He didn't want to take his sweaty shoes back to his hotel room, and he didn't want to leave them in the car in case they stunk up the car. So he put the shoes on the roof of the car. No, was it on the roof of the car or under the car? Like on the roof of the car or under the car, and forgot his wedding ring was still tied to them. Came back, they all went out. He and his team went out for a meal. They came back and they couldn't find the shoes.
Well, obviously.
It wasn't a secured hotel car park, but yeah. So he got. They asked the hotel to review the security footage. He put a thing out on Instagram, which was kind of like I've been an idiot moment. I've been a muppet, and if anyone knows anything, please let me know. Also, sorry to my wife.
Andy Murray.
The good news is he actually got the shoes, and more importantly, the ring back within 24 hours, because as soon as they told the hotel they were going to call the police, the shoes somehow mysteriously reappeared.
Well, there you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. It all ended well in the end. But seriously, don't leave your shoes on your car outside. Anyway, yes. So back to the jewelry. I completely understand that element of it, and I don't mind at all players, playing in jewelry and stuff. But I do always wonder, when I saw this question, it definitely was interesting to me because there are some players. I take, for example, Andrei Rublev, who plays with a stack of bracelety things, and also someone like Aryna Sabalenka, who plays with these necklaces, where I'm just like, how are they comfortable with that? And also, by the way, these are expensive. This is expensive jewelry. Okay. I remember during the US Open, Aryna Sabalenka did this campaign with a jewelry brand, and she's actually still wearing the necklace. Every time I see it, I'm just like, oh my goodness. But she's wearing a necklace currently that has 7 diamonds on it, and then the middle one is some sort of different, like, precious gem. And she's just sweating in it and playing in it and just, doing tennis things. And I could not imagine owning a piece of jewelry that expensive and then sweating in it. I mean, they're not playing, I don't know, chess. They are running around and sweating in it, and it's crazy. And I think of someone like Grigor Dimitrov, who he has those sort of Van Cleef bracelets. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm going to put a picture of what a Van Cleef bracelet is. And he has a stack of them. Like, he doesn't have one. He has like a stack of them. These things are very expensive. And he wears them underneath his sweatband while he's playing. And part of if you go to the care website of that company, part of their requirement is you don't wear it when you're sweating. Anyway, tennis players and their jewelry, it's all expensive stuff. They still wear it when they're playing. More power to them. It's really great, but it's interesting. Some of the players, they have small dainty stuff and it's fun, but some of them I'm just like, wow, how are you playing in that? It's very fascinating. Let us know in the comments what you think about players and their jewelry. I would be really interested to know what you all think. So, let us get into exhibitions. Hop on topic. There's so many different thoughts around exhibitions. I think for some weird reason, exhibitions is it's like a bad word. It's like swearing in tennis. It's like, oh, exhibition, which is funny. I think until I started really covering, quote unquote, tennis and like having a podcast about tennis and all that stuff, I never really got that. I've always loved exhibitions and everything. But the more and more you get into tennis and covering tennis, you find out that tennis has become this bad word, or not tennis, sorry, exhibitions has become this bad word. And Nick, I want to ask you, like, when did you realize, or have you realized that for some reason exhibitions is this sort of bad word in tennis?
Not consciously. Not consciously, but it is something that I guess it's like when you thought about it and we've been talking about it online, it's just one of those things that, like, I get fed up with people moaning about things, and this is just one of those things I think is stupid to moan about. From what I can gather, I think there is a snobbery when it comes to exhibitions, that you're just playing for money. You're not playing for points. You're not playing for anything meaningful in terms of prize. There's no pride of any kind involved. Or exhibitions isn't a proving ground of any kind. You're just there to make money. And for some reason, there's this snobbishness about it that might come from the fact that that's always been in tennis, because there was a snobbishness about playing professionally, let alone doing exhibitions. So I think there's an element of that in it. I do think we talked about this on a couple of episodes ago, about there's this elitism about, like, all tennis has to matter and nobody can work out how to make exhibitions matter in the overall narrative of the season, because let's face it, we're not going to talk about Six Kings Slam again, which is what's prompted this. Like, it's not going to figure anywhere in the story of anyone's season of any of these guys who've played it. So I think there's that. And then I also think that exhibitions also are getting a bad rep at the moment because of the whole calendar discussion, because people are using it as a way of undermining when players say that the calendar is too long or there's too much tennis or things like that, and say, well, you're complaining about this and then you're going to play exhibitions because, well, clearly it doesn't bother you that much because you're finding a way to play. Why does it matter? And I think we've talked about that before in terms of it's about rest from the intensity of competition, not a rest from playing tennis, because anyone who knows that you'll be playing on the practice court even when you're not competing. I don't think many players take much more than a week off the practice court. So I think it comes down to those three things as to what's going on.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, those are all great points. So before we dive into each of those, let's discuss what an exhibition is and all the different kinds, because I think based on what you said there, all those, there's still different categories of exhibitions and your points fit into different categories. So I kind of divided the exhibitions into three different buckets. We've got the, what I want to call sort of cups / charity type events. And when I say cups, I loop in all of the sort of Hopman Cups, all the exhibitions in like December, Six Kings Slams. You know, I'm putting them all in the cup bucket.
Garden Cup.
Garden Cup, you know, they're all some, you know, we'll come to Laver because I feel like they have a cup at the end of their name, but they're all a little different. But I'm putting them all in that sort of bucket. They're the sort of very clearly for money exhibitions. Yeah. So there's that. Then we've got the charity exhibitions, the sort of doing good exhibitions. They're there to sort of promote the sport of tennis and then also maybe, you know, kind of raise money for a certain thing. With that, I am looking at when Casper Ruud and Nadal at the end of 23, they did like this sort of tour of South America with some tennis exhibitions, or when Roger Federer and Rafa Nadal, they did a whole exhibition in South Africa for a charity. So there's that. Then there are the other quote unquote exhibitions that I feel like are on a different level, where we have Laver Cup and the UTS, which is Ultimate Tennis Showdown, which is, I think they're in a different bucket as well. So let's talk about all those different buckets. So we have, I think, the money exhibitions. I think actually that's a better way to talk about them. They're the money exhibitions. They're the exhibitions, I think, that players play to get some extra money. You know, they organizations that have money to spend, that want to, you know, have players come and play tennis and promote, you know, an event, pay them a whole bunch of money to come over and play. Now, I think the biggest of them all is the Six King Slam. The prize money at the end, and I think it's kind of been blown up because you can make $6 million at the end. But I think the prize money for just showing up, I think it's 1.5 million. And then if you win, it's 4.5. So the total will get you to $6 million. But that's more than winning a Grand Slam. So that's the big kahuna. But you have other money events like the ones that you talked about, the Garden Cup, which happens in December in New York. Now there's going to be one in Miami this year. We've got the Hopman Cup that was in Italy. Am I missing any others? There's so many.
I think there's usually some kind of Netflix exhibition. There was like the Dal Alcaraz last year. I don't know if they did another one this year.
Yes.
There's one in Abu Dhabi that usually gets held around Christmas.
Yes.
I forget the name of, but that and that would just be the Abu Dhabi Open, but I think that's now become its own tournament. So that actually gets some TV coverage as well and some attention, and players have used that before as a sort of a pre-season warm-up. So that kind of happens, yeah. I'm really curious, Anastasia, because there's one of those ones that you've listed which I'm not sure I would count in the same vein, and that's Hopman Cup. Why are you counting Hopman Cup in that mix?
Because I feel so when I talk about these sort of like money exhibitions, the way I see them is that the players come, they get paid to play, but it's also the most sort of fun, quote unquote, of all of them. Like when they're playing it, they're also there to entertain as well. And at least from watching Hopman Cup, it seems to fall in that category as well.
Okay. I would disagree. Obviously, I didn't watch Hopman Cup this year.
Yeah.
But
from what I watched this year, it was super fun.
So maybe it's changed. But so for those who don't know, Hopman Cup is another one of those ones that is a mixed event, like the United Cup, where you play for your country and it's men and women together. And actually, it traditionally was the precursor to United Cup. Because United Cup effectively replaced it as an idea. It used to be one of the Australian Open warm-up events. So in my mind, it's still like that, and it's still trying to be relevant as a country's competition.
I think probably when it was still the version of United Cup, like when it was the United Cup, that's what it was. But since the United Cup came into play, the last two editions of the Hopman Cup that I watched were very kind of just fun hits, basically. Like I watched, and the only reason actually that I watched this year's Hopman Cup, because this year's Hopman Cup happened right after Wimbledon, just before the City DC Open. And Flavio Cobolli was playing both. Flavio Cobolli went deep at Wimbledon, was playing Hopman Cup, and then was in doubles and singles at the City Open. And I was thinking, how in the world is he trying to do this? Because there was only a week in between Wimbledon and the City Open, but he did it. I remember he flew into DC from the Hopman Cup and basically played the very next day. Like he had no break. So I was watching the Hopman Cup just to see how he did, because Italy, then they won the Hopman Cup this year. And it was very much just they seemed to be having a fun old good time there. It wasn't, it definitely was not on the level of a Laver Cup or even a UTS at that. So that's why I put it in that level.
I think that's fine. And I think fun is an important word to use when talking about exhibitions, because I don't think we actually discussed what is an exhibition. Like, we haven't given a dictionary definition or a ground pass definition of what we mean by an exhibition. Like, we've just kind of gone into like different types and things like that. So for me, exhibitions are events that don't count for any ranking points or hold any kind of historical prestige in terms of the history of the sport, or there's any kind of pride at stake in terms of playing for your country or trying to achieve something. You're either there to make some extra money, or mainly, as to be honest, you're there to have fun playing tennis, because I think pros find it hard to have fun playing tennis because it's their job. It's what they do day in, day out. How many people have fun just doing their job? Very few of us. So that's a key part of it. And also it gives them an opportunity, like when you're in competition, unless you're Alexander Bublik, you're not going to be doing kind of the more experimental tennis shots. And so that's where exhibitions come in. You're trying to entertain not just by the intensity of competition, but also showing off what you can do. And it's an opportunity to kind of show off a bit. And so I guess that's what it means by exhibition. An exhibition is, it's not official, it's not for pride, and you're trying to entertain in a different way. I don't know if you want to add or tweak that definition, Anastasia.
No, that definition definitely works. And I will come back. I think we should come back to why players play exhibitions once we've gone through all the different levels. But yeah, so that's definitely the first section, I think, of, pay to play, if we want to call it that. The second grouping that I want to say, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, where it's more sort of like to grow the sport and as a charitable event, which is more towards what Rafa was doing in South America with Casper Ruud. It's bringing tennis to maybe places that tennis doesn't go to often. We always talk about, for example, wouldn't it be nice if there was a Grand Slam in South America, or, maybe a Masters 1000 in South America. And Casper Ruud and Rafa Nadal at the end of 23, they did this entire tour of different South American cities, and they played all these matches in those cities. Or, for example, when Roger Federer and Rafa Nadal played a tournament for charity in South Africa. There isn't a big tournament in South Africa. And here are two of the big three playing a match in South Africa. It wasn't for points. If you watch, I think you can actually still, if I can find a link to the event, I will post it in the description, because I think it's still online somewhere. And if you watch it, it is clearly just fun. They actually had Trevor Noah, who's a South African comedian, playing with them as well. Like, it was a totally fun event. So yeah, so that is also in that sort of charitable, bringing tennis to a place that it doesn't usually go to event.
Okay, yeah. So I think that's important as well. I don't think I mentioned charity, but you're right. Like, it's about sort of using your resources to raise some money, or, going somewhere. But like, even in places like the US, where like not every, like a big country like the US, where you can't necessarily get to New York for the US Open or California for Indian Wells, it's a great opportunity to kind of sit back and enjoy some tennis closer to where you are. Maybe if you're in the UK, Wimbledon tickets aren't easy to get hold of. Maybe you want to pay some money for a ticket. That's worth doing. And I think of all the exhibitions, these are the ones that are the least controversial, I'm going to say. I don't think you hear many people saying that these kind of exhibitions shouldn't happen, not unless you are really, really like deep into the everything has to matter camp.
Right.
So I don't think these kind of exhibitions are controversial. Correct me otherwise.
Yeah, no, they're totally not. I think you're right in terms of mostly they're not. I think it's mostly, like you said, people who are just like everything has to matter, or when it comes to the schedule. And I know, for example, Casper Ruud didn't really have a great 2024 season, and a lot of it was attributed to like, maybe he should have taken a break instead of going to play exhibitions, throughout the month of December, basically, with Rafa Nadal. But different topic for a different day. We will probably talk about schedules at some point. And then the last two, which I think we will put in the same bucket, I would say these are exhibitions, or even should we be calling them exhibitions, or are these just tournaments that are not part of the main tour? These are just separate tennis tournaments that do not exist in the sort of official tour. And I would list under this Laver Cup, UTS, maybe World Team Tennis that happens in January, kind of December, before the season in Australia starts. And these are tournaments that players play for points within those tennis tournaments, within those systems. They have a trophy, they earn prize money, they get appearance fees to be in those. These tournaments happen, every year at this point. And the reason I'm separating them from exhibitions, and should we even be calling them exhibitions, is because at least for Laver Cup and UTS, a lot of players seem to take these tournaments very seriously in the terms of, with Laver Cup, with Team Europe and Team World, some players take this seriously as in they want to win for their side. The coaches who are coaching them take it seriously as in for the coaching part of it. With UTS, they're actively trying to see if they can, change the sport and make it more accessible to new fans by creating a different way of playing the sport of tennis. World Team Tennis is a totally different thing. It's like sort of like a mixed tennis event with, it's a team, it's kind of like a team sport. They kind of created a tennis as a team sport kind of vibe. So that's why I kind of want to separate them from even exhibitions. Do you agree or no?
I would agree with that, yes. Actually, do you know how long World Team Tennis has been around for, Anastasia?
Not officially, I don't. No.
1973.
Wow.
This has been around for literally freaking years.
Ever. Wow.
But nobody really talks about it anymore because, and this is the thing, right? I agree with you that exhibitions like Laver Cup and UTS and World Team Tennis are not exhibitions in the sense that, yeah, they are actually competitive. People care about them, but for different reasons, I think. And some of them are rivals, like UTS and World Team Tennis, Ultimate Tennis Showdown, World Team Tennis. And some are events that aren't worth points, but are trying to gain legitimacy within the established tennis structure. So Laver Cup, the matches in Laver Cup count towards head-to-heads in the ATP. So there's a sense that like they're trying to create this event where winning it matters, and people will talk about, oh, remember when this person won the Laver Cup. That was always going to be that was always the goal when it was created. It was meant to be adding something to the tennis calendar, not create an extra fun thing. And then you get to things like World Team Tennis, which came about in an era in the 70s where tennis was still finding its feet as a professional sport. And I'm going to historian mode here, because you prompted me saying this by saying the main tour. Did you know in the 1970s there were two main tours on the men's side? There was the ATP tour. Yeah. There was the ATP tour and the World Championship Tennis Tour, and particularly in the early 70s. And you actually had different top players signed up for different tours, and the only times they would come together would be at Grand Slams, which is one of the reasons why the slams stayed relevant and like the biggest prizes. But then some slams started banning players for taking part in certain tours. So some WCT players weren't allowed to take part in the French Open, I think, or Wimbledon, or didn't want to because it clashed or didn't pay as much. And there was a few years where the French Open banned anyone taking part in World Team Tennis, which meant that most of the women's tour didn't go. So like there were years where Chris Evert and Navratilova and back in the 70s were skipping the French, which is why you have some crazy winners in there because they weren't allowed to. Like Jimmy Connors was banned from playing the French because he was playing World Team Tennis. This is a massive tangent, but I think this also plays into these things don't count because we have now established a set. This is the main tour. This is everything that matters. And anything not that is an exhibition. These are not exhibitions. They are rivals. And so if you're trying to challenge the status quo, you're going to be seen as fringe, or what's code for fringe in tennis? Exhibition. So that's what's going on. And by the way, this almost happened to the WTA tour because the WTA tour was a breakaway from the main tour as well. Like that was the women going, you're not paying us enough. We're going to do our own thing. And everyone running tennis went, well, we'll see how long this lasts. How does 50 years sound? Yeah. Yeah, that's what's going on. So I would say what you're looking at here is these are rival events to the main tour that are attracting players. They have been very smart with their scheduling because they've realized that the main tour and the point system is so ingrained that players can't play at certain times that without hurting their careers, but they can still grow their own brands and attract people and do that. So that is what's going on with things like UTS, World Team Tennis. Laver Cup is different. Laver Cup tries to exist within. So that's, I think, we do need to keep, you're right to keep this separate category. I would say you kind of like, Laver Cup is like an extension and the others are right.
If you owe $10,000 or more in credit card debt, medical bills, or personal loans, help is here. More and more Americans turn to credit cards to get by. National Debt Relief is helping qualified clients reduce what they owe. For many, continuing to struggle making minimum monthly payments could take years to pay off. National Debt Relief has already helped over 550,000 Americans reduce their debt by negotiating directly with their creditors. When you call, you'll be amazed at how much you can save and how quickly you can become debt-free. If you want off the debt treadmill, visit nationaldebtrelief.com today. You don't need to declare bankruptcy, and you may qualify for significant debt relief. To find out what savings you may qualify for, simply visit nationaldebtrelief.com. That's nationaldebtrelief.com.
Yeah, totally. So these are all the buckets of exhibitions we have. Now it's time to get into, I think, why do players play these exhibitions? Because that's, I think, the crux of the issue here. You know, I think in general, like as a concept, I don't think people actually have an issue with the concept of an exhibition. The issue comes with when players play exhibitions in general.
Anastasia, if you were a pro player, would you play exhibitions?
100%. I would play exhibitions. If I was a pro player, like in all honesty, if you're asking me seriously, if I was a pro player, I would schedule in exhibitions into my schedule. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would have to think very carefully about it, but I certainly wouldn't automatically turn them down. So, and I think, yeah, you're right. It's down to like when players actually take part, it's like, wait a minute, why are you doing that? Like, and again, it comes down to the scheduling debate, which is a whole nother thing. And I think this is, if there wasn't a debate about the schedule, people would probably grumble and be a bit snobbish about exhibitions going, why are you doing that? And it would be down to, then it's like, are we allowed to enjoy exhibitions? The answer is yes, by the way.
Yep.
Like, there shouldn't be a debate over whether you're allowed to enjoy an exhibition, as long as you treat it for what it is, but don't say what it is lesser. If you're saying that players taking part in exhibitions undermines calls for a better scheduling of tennis, you've got an issue, because again, it's down to first of all, exhibitions aren't necessarily, if we take out Laver Cup and UTS and the rivals where they are trying, like the proper exhibitions, the charity stuff, the pre-season warm-ups, the money stuff, saying, well, why are you signing up for that? And it's like, well, first of all, it's not intense competition, so it's not the same. And even if it is, I think it comes down to your mindset of, I want to watch tennis, you guys are here to play tennis, stop complaining and play tennis. It's your job. It's your job to entertain me by playing tennis. And that is the core attitude here when it comes into it. It's like, well, they are going to entertain you by playing tennis. I think the issue is, you're basically saying these are the only people who are not allowed to complain about their jobs. Like,
right. Yeah.
I complain about my job sometimes.
I'm pretty sure the people who are typing all these things are also complaining about their jobs as well. But so I think let's get into the reasons, or at least the possible reasons, why players are playing these exhibitions. I think there are different reasons, and we can go into all of them. But one of them, I think, could be for a bit of a mental break. We've kind of mentioned this a bit here, where we've said playing a tournament, Grand Slam, Masters 1000, is not the same as playing an exhibition. And I think it was Carlos Alcaraz who actually said this during pre-tournament press at the Six Kings Slam, because he was asked this question. He was asked, what do you say to people who say you complain about the schedule and yet here you are playing the Six King Slam? And he said, I completely understand people who are saying it's a bit hypocritical, but he said playing 15 days at a tournament, the mental stress that you need to go through to be in a tournament like a Grand Slam for 15 straight days is not the same as playing Six King Slam for 3 days. And I can't argue with that. Like, you have to be intense. I think this US Open, I think, is the best example of it. Everyone kept talking about this US Open, about Carlos Alcaraz with the shaved head, was, oh my goodness, look how focused he is. He's not dropping a set. He's super locked in. That, I'm sure, was not easy, to be that mentally locked in for 2 weeks, basically 3, because all slams now are like 3 weeks long, to playing 3 days of an exhibition in Saudi Arabia. Do you agree? What do you think?
Yeah. Yes, it does. It makes sense to me. Like, I don't see why it wouldn't. Like, staying focused for 15 days or longer, that's an intense period of time, especially when you're trying to win one of the biggest tournaments. So Six King Slam is 3-4 days, and you get some money out of it, but no, it's not going to destroy your career over it. So if you don't win it, so nobody's going to remember whether you won it or not. So why not go out and have fun with it and still enjoy what you do? So I would agree. I think that doing something that's less intense is a good thing. I think we also have to be honest and say, players are also doing this for the money. I don't think we should pretend otherwise, and I don't think we should not mention that.
Yeah. That was the next point. The next point is players are doing this for the money. They're not, I think in terms of, we talked about the different levels of exhibitions, most of them, other than I think maybe the charitable ones, but even with the one where, I talked about Nadal and Casper going on tour to South America, I'm sure Casper was paid an appearance fee to spend basically most of December with Nadal traveling to South America. In most of these things, they're paid. And when you think about it, like, this is their job. Should they not be paid to do their job? Do you not want to earn, if you're at a job, do you not want to earn the most that you possibly can at that job? And I think there's this thing, I think that, and do I understand it? I don't know if I understand it, but there's this thing that I see constantly where it's like, oh, they're doing it for the money. And I'm like, well, yes, of course they're doing it for the money. What else would they be doing it for? I'm like, the sun is rising.
The love of the game, Anastasia. The love of the game. The love of the game.
They're doing it for tennis. Of course they're doing it for the money. The sky is blue. Like, what else are they doing it for? Shocker. Sinner, who doesn't play any exhibitions, is playing an exhibition that pays him $6 million. He's doing it for the love of tennis. So, I think that is a completely valid reason for playing an exhibition, is doing it for the money. They're thinking of their future. They're building academies. There's a Carlos Alcaraz Academy. Jannik Sinner just announced his academy. They've got bills to pay, guys. They've got bills to pay. People to hire. So I think doing it for the money is completely valid. The next point that I want to bring up, a possible reason why they're doing it, is to try out new things. Now, very interesting part of this, which I love to get into the nerdy stuff. And Laura Robson was one of the announcers of the Six King Slam. And she did a few kind of like behind the scenes, like she did like a hit with Jannik Sinner, where she was trying to return one of his serves. And in her sort of like post, she was like, oh, it was really hard. And she was talking to the other presenters and stuff. She was like, I used one of his rackets, and it's his next year's racket. So Jannik Sinner at this exhibition was trying out his next year's racket, trying out new things. He also is trying out his new serve that he has been working on post-US Open. Taylor Fritz won a set against Novak Djokovic. Post-match, he said, post-US Open, he came at it at a different way. Like he knew he had to come at that match in a different way, trying out new things. Now, what better way or what better time to try out new techniques, new equipment, anything new than an exhibition where whatever the results are, it's not that consequential, but you can fully try out new skills, new equipment, so that when you actually go to a tournament where it's for points and the results are consequential, you've already tried out your new stuff, you know? And I don't know why people don't see that. Again, maybe people didn't watch the exhibition, so they don't know that, but I did. I watched the exhibition and I was so fascinated that I was like, oh, wow, he's trying out his new racket for 2026 already. And he's trying it out here at the exhibition. And everyone kept talking about his new service motion, and he was trying it out here, and it worked. He was serving. It was crazy. His new serve is crazy. So watch out the rest of the tour. But yeah, so it's like, these are the opportunities. Players can use these exhibitions to try out things that they're working on. It's the one time that things don't, quote unquote, matter that much, where they're willing to try out new things and feel free to do so.
I think I agree with everything you said. Like, where else would you try it? Because the practice court will only tell you so much. You got to see, maybe depending on where you're trying it, it may not be the most intense combat, but it's the closest you're going to get than just playing a practice set against somebody. So I think it makes sense to try these new things out, give it a go, free from consequence. I don't really have anything more to say to that, to be honest.
I have a couple of, so I posted on Threads and most of our social media about this episode that we were going to record, that, you know, about exhibitions and stuff. And we did get some responses about that. And I just wanted to bring up a few because I think it's worth kind of talking about and responding to. And we heard from Midnight Train to Georgia. Very good name. Midnight Train to Georgia from Blue Sky responded to say, people keep insisting exos are real. They are not. The players simply won't kill themselves like they would in the final of a slam. They may play harder than they would in a low-level real tournament, which is a warm-up, but not the same. My 2 cents. So this is a sentiment that I've seen a lot as well. You probably have seen a lot as well. And it's the whole thing where it's like exos aren't real. Players are not playing to their real level. And I saw this a lot, especially in reference to Taylor Fritz. Poor Taylor Fritz. He's always catching strays. But when he beat Carlos Alcaraz at Laver Cup, and then now he beat Novak Djokovic in that first set before Novak Djokovic retired, you know, the response, and it's always, and I get it, I understand. These are fans of players who obviously are defending their player. And the response is, oh, well, it's an exhibition. So of course, you know, Carlos was not playing to his full level at Laver Cup. That's why he lost. Or, you know, Novak wasn't playing to his full level and stuff. But I feel like, you know, it almost disregards the work that the other player is doing as well. I don't know what you think of that sentiment. I basically think it disregards the work of the other player and the work that they're doing in order to work to beat the other person, because it's almost like saying, even in a main tour event, if someone beats someone in Madrid, but then loses to them at Queens and Wimbledon, oh, it's because in Madrid that player wasn't playing to their top level. You know, which is it? Because I feel like different surfaces, different conditions, different things lead to different results sometimes.
Yeah, I had a kind of back and forth with Amy Lundy, who's a kind of a commentator on X about the use of the word level. And I don't think people use this word and don't really know what it means. Even commentators don't really know what it means. So let's put it like this. I think level can mean lots of different things in this context. Like, even in the sentence that you were just saying, because when you started, level meant effort, and then the end of the sentence, level meant ability. So there you go. So let's try and take that word out. What do I think? I think it brings about, I'm kind of repeating a point I made earlier in the podcast, like this idea that it's not worth watching tennis unless everyone involved is putting in maximum effort. And if people aren't, then it's not a waste of time. Now, if it's a competition, I can understand why you would say that. But again, you need to decide, like, what competition. Should Taylor Fritz break everything he can to win Eastbourne as a warm-up to Wimbledon? just to put that out there. Like, or should he play to what he needs to still have lots of energy to try and beat Carlos Alcaraz and Yannick Sinner and win Wimbledon? So let's put that out there. Should Taylor Fritz be putting in maximum effort to win the Six Kings Slam? Hell no. Like, Six Kings Slam is worth money. It's not worth any kind of prestige or anything like that. No disrespect to the event, but I'm treating it for what it is. It's a fun event. Fun is fine. Fun is fun. Fun is good for both the players and the fans. Now, I am guilty of this. I don't tend to watch exhibitions because I know it's not a maximum effort scenario. I know what it is. And, like, it's a choice between that or watching a couple of people who are putting in maximum effort, which will be more entertaining. And I feel like, but I'm also watching it for stakes as well. And I struggle with the stakes of exhibitions a lot. To watch on TV. If there was an exhibition happening in Birmingham or Manchester, which are the two nearest big cities to me in the UK, would I go? Would I buy tickets? Yes, I would. Because I want to go watch tennis. It's a different thing. And I think watching the kind of experience you get from an exhibition is far better in person. You went to the Garden Cup last year. I think you've already had more fun there than you would if you'd watched it on TV. Correct me if I'm wrong. But that's kind of where I'm at with it. Is I fully support choosing to watch something where everyone involved is putting in maximum effort as your number one choice when you have choice. If you don't have choice, just enjoy it. Or you are allowed to choose just watching your favourite players regardless of whether they're putting in maximum effort. That's okay too. Like, if someone like if you're a big fan of Leila Fernandez, I think you'd watch her whether she was playing in Osaka, she was this week, or whether she was playing some other in an exhibition, like Garden Cup. That's okay too. I don't think you're watching just to see that. You're just watching to see her. Six Kings Slam. If you're a Sinkaraz fan, you're watching for them. And it's okay if they're not putting in maximum effort and they're not going to do a 5-hour classic. So, yeah, it's not about... If you only want to watch maximum effort, fine, because I sympathise. Don't tell me not to watch if I'm watching it.
Yeah, totally. Another point that came from online, which I found very interesting as well, was from Sophie. And I thought this was very interesting. And she said, does it depend on the player? I see two types of personalities. Alcaraz plays more exhibitions than Sinner, and I think he values the opportunity to play with more freedom and put on a show. He needs breaks from the tour, hamster wheel, and exhibitions might help him keep loving the sport, and money, of course. So you get what she's trying to say there, where exhibitions might be more important to other players than not for the mental break of it all. And I tend to agree. Some players thrive more having that break and having that sort of like disconnect from tournament after tournament after tournament, where, like he said in that presser for Six Kings Slam, it's just not the same. Playing an exhibition is not the same as playing a Grand Slam. And so just putting it in context of, oh, but you're playing this many weeks of a schedule, it's just not the same when you look. It's not an equal tournament to tournament kind of thing.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there are some players who, it depends on the player. And like, some will play more than others, some will give more effort than others. And with such a wide variety of personalities on the tour, I wouldn't be surprised. I always try to come up with like a super exhibition of players and like who would you most want to play in one of your exhibitions, and like for me it'd be all the players who could do trick shots. So can you imagine if you did a Six King Slam type thing with Alcaraz, Bublik, Monfils, like Mute, Medvedev even sometimes? Like,
Yeah,
can
that
you
would just
imagine
be
that
fun
lineup? That would be
times.
so much fun.
That would be so much fun. Okay, so last bit before we recap what has happened this last week of the tour, I just want to say that what happened this week with the Six King Slam is these sort of tournaments, these sort of exhibitions, and especially the fact that it aired on Netflix, it really does help with discovery of tennis. So many people reached out and were like, did you see Sinkaraz is on Netflix? And literally, it's so funny that was just the sentence. It wasn't, oh, tennis is on Netflix. Sinkaraz is on Netflix.
I've been getting people messaging me that I'm friends with who are saying, did you know that there's tennis on Netflix?
Yep. And you cannot sort of disregard that sort of reach, that sort of exposure of the sport to just a general public. You know, I do want to say, I don't think we should wrap up this talk of exhibition without touching on the fact of the Six King Slam being held in Saudi Arabia and the issues that come with that. Saudi Arabia is a country with a lot of political and social issues. I will put my hand up. I am not an expert on all of those issues. I would say definitely research that on your own. I do know that there are definitely civil rights and human rights issues in Saudi Arabia that I have researched on my own, and I've made my own sort of personal choices of how I watch and interact with all the sort of media coming out of that country. But we are in a world now where we have the Six King Slam that is hosted in Saudi Arabia. The WTA Finals is hosted in Riyadh. The whole WTA Finals is in Riyadh for at least multiple years now. I don't know when their contract is till, but
I think it's a multi-year deal, yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be there for a while. So we definitely have to mention that also. That I think played a part with certain people wanting to or not wanting to watching the Six King Slam. A lot of people literally just saw it on Netflix. They saw because of course Netflix, what they do with all their programming, it's like this huge, massive banner. And it's the first thing you see when you turn it on. And it's like, Alcaraz, tennis, Netflix, watch now. So many people watch because of that, because it's so accessible. It's an app that everybody has. And I think that's great for tennis. So should you watch exhibitions? If you want to, do it happily. Have fun doing it. And it doesn't have to mean anything. It can just be for fun. And that is okay. You don't have to sort of like, does it mean anything? It doesn't have to mean anything. You can just watch for fun. Guess what? You can also just watch the main tour for fun. People do it all the time. You can watch the main tour for fun. It's all right. It's okay. So yeah, that's the only thing I'll leave this. I don't know if you want to end with anything, Nick, but that's how I'll end it.
Your views are aligned with mine. I'm not gonna. I think I would just repeat myself if I repeat your last point, and I do also agree with you that people need to make their own judgment of what they consume with anything that's taking place in Saudi Arabia. So you and I are aligned, Anastasia. So yeah, just go out and enjoy yourself and have some casual tennis.
This message comes from Ethos. Discover the modern way to get life insurance all online. Protect your family's future against the unexpected in minutes, not months. With Ethos, you could get up to $3 million in coverage without a medical exam. Just answer a few health questions. Some policies are as low as $2 a day. Billed monthly. Get your free quote at ethos.com/audio. That's ETHOS.com/audio. Application times may vary. Rates may vary.
If you owe $10,000 or more in credit card debt, medical bills, or personal loans, help is here. More and more Americans turn to credit cards to get by. National Debt Relief is helping qualified clients reduce what they owe. For many, continuing to struggle making minimum monthly payments could take years to pay off. National Debt Relief has already helped over 550,000 Americans reduce their debt by negotiating directly with their creditors. When you call, you'll be amazed at how much you can save and how quickly you can become debt-free. If you want off the debt treadmill, visit nationaldebtrelief.com today. You don't need to declare bankruptcy, and you may qualify for significant debt relief. To find out what savings you may qualify for, simply visit nationaldebtrelief.com. That's nationaldebtrelief.com.
So, it was a busy week this week. A lot of tennis. A lot of tennis.
Busy.
So much.
It was busy
tennis.
2 weeks, but you had a mini pod covering last week.
Yes. That's why I feel like it's been a lot because, yes, we did have that mini pod in between. But this past week, there was still some tennis in Asia, and the WTA is pretty much going to wrap up the season in Asia. But the ATP has moved on, kind of. They still had one tournament in Asia to the European indoor swing. So European indoor swing is happening as we speak. In fact, just before we get into it, I wanted to pull up, I don't know if you have it, to see.
I have the live score, yeah.
Oh, it's still going on. Okay.
Yes, the final of Brussels is still going on, and they are into a second set tiebreak. Felix Auger-Aliassime won the first. He's 2-0 up in that second set tiebreak. So we could get a result as we record.
There you go.
We're not going to necessarily commentate on it here. What I did want to say was like my standout thing from this week, apart from all the WTA finals qualification stuff, which I think would be a longer conversation. But like for me, big headline is Anastasia, Medvedev won a title. Finally.
Man.
Finally.
Wow.
He's got less lost.
Oh, wow. It's happened. It's happened.
It took over 2 years, but he finally did.
He did it. So if you follow us on social media, just before we recorded, I posted about Medvedev winning. And my post was basically, so the last time Medvedev won a title, guys, was Rome. Rome 2023, clay court. And I remember back then, everyone was losing their mind because Medvedev is the hard court king, or at least he was. He was the hard court king before Jannik Sinner came along, but he was the hard court king. He won all his stuff on hard court. He had such a great hard court season earlier that year. And then he comes into clay and he wins a Masters on clay. So we started calling him Clayvedev. And people were genuinely thinking, wow, is Medvedev about to just take over? Because if he can play well on hard, and now he's playing well on clay, is this his time? If you had told us then that he would not win another title for 2.5 years, pretty much more than 2.5 years, Nick, we wouldn't have believed it, right?
No, definitely not. I mean, we were like talking like, he was going to be one of the top guys. Like 2023 was so long ago, Anastasia. We weren't even a podcast when Medvedev last won a title.
We didn't.
So there was this assumption that, it was all about Medvedev was going to be up there with Djokovic and Alcaraz. And, Sinner wasn't even, there were a lot of doubts about Sinner getting there. And I never doubted it. But, he was like one of the guys. And then it just didn't happen. And then, after he didn't win Rome 2024, I was like, okay, it's been over a year, but he should win one soon. It took another 18 months, nearly. So, he's obviously, not without trying. He got within a set of winning the 2024 Australian Open, a couple of other events. He's had a few meltdowns this year. He's nowhere near where we expected him to be. But there are signs that maybe he's starting to get himself back into some kind of gear, and we'll see what happens in 2026. It's a bit late to rescue 2025 at this point, but Medvedev winning a title on a hard court, order is restored.
We're back, baby. He has a new
Sure.
team. It's looking, we're not going to get too excited, but it's looking good for the Octopus. Also, on the men's side, if we just want to keep on going with the men's side, Stockholm, just before we started recording as well, I watched Casper Ruud play like the indoor clay, the indoor king that he is. Casper Ruud is not supposed to play this well on indoor hard court. He's just not. He's a clay player. He's a clay courter. That's what he is. And he played so well that he surprised himself.
Didn't he get to the finals of the ATP finals like 3 years ago? Like he played
was that
Djokovic
3
in
years
the
ago?
final of the 22 ATP finals.
Yeah. But he played the finals against Hugo Humbert, who Hugo Humbert is the sort of player who shows up in February for the indoor swing and then in the fall for the indoor swing. And you never hear from him in the middle of the year. He does not exist.
He is
Hugo
the
Humbert
indoor
is not a
king, or he should
player.
be.
Huh?
He is the indoor king, or he should be.
Exactly. He just doesn't exist in the middle of the year. He's just a non-entity. But at the end of the match, Casper was being interviewed and he was like, I don't think I've ever played this well ever. He said that. And he apologized to Hugo Humbert because he's like, I haven't played this well ever. And I don't know what happened. And Casper, we don't know what happened. And if you don't know what happened, we're all at a loss. But it was such a great performance. It was just incredible. He is very much on the outside looking in terms of making it to Turin this year. But who knows? We still have a few more tournaments left before Turin. And if there is some crazy way that he can keep up this form for the next few tournaments, who knows? I mean, he would need a few players to just not do well in order to make it. But that was a really, really great performance by Casper Ruud in Stockholm.
Yeah, and getting his season back on track after struggling a little bit because he won Madrid and then got injured and then it's just messed up his season a lot. So it's good to see him back on track. One of the people that he's waiting to see if they have a bad season or bad run of results is Felix Auger-Aliassime, who is probably not going to be on that list, depending on what happens next, because he's currently on match point for the title. Oh no, he's just lost match point on his serve. It's 5-6 as a man on the match point to come on the Hechka's serve. So maybe we'll have to come back to that.
Yeah, we'll have to come back for that. What also happened in Brussels is we have the doubles champions in Brussels, which, it's the story that keeps on going that I keep talking about and I will not stop talking about for the rest of the season, is Evan King and Chris Harrison won the doubles title in Brussels to keep themselves in the running to make it to the year-end finals in Turin. They're currently number 8 in the race, and they just might make it. There's still a few more tournaments to go. They're right on the edge, number 8. And to me, it's one of the most incredible stories. If they make it to Turin, they would be a team who could not get into qualifying at the beginning of this year because they were so low ranked. They needed a wild card to get into qualifying at the Dallas Open, which was the start of their incredible run. And now they might make it to the year-end finals. So
they really would.
Guys.
I mean, let's face it, that's going to make them big, I guess. They're going to be the story. That's going to be the Grand Pass story of the year, pretty much. Because they kind of caught our attention right at the start of the year and, caught your attention Anastasia and, just run with it and got great results. And they beat their rivals for that Turin spot, Hugo Nice and Edouard Roger-Vasselin, to extend their points advantage over them to 300 with 2 tournaments to go, or two big playing weeks to go. There's a lot of points to be won between now and then, but that's going to give them a big boost, especially since it is between those 2 teams for that final spot. The doubles, it's interesting given how open the ATP singles field is, that the doubles field is pretty much locked down apart from this set. But I'd say with this result, Harrison and King are probably the favourites to make it. Yeah, we're not going to bring you a result from the singles.
No,
by the way,
we're not.
because
No.
Hiradecha's won the second set.
Yeah.
Felix Auger-Aliassime.
Yuri's like, don't count me out. Yuri says, don't count me out yet. Don't count me out just yet. But we had some winners on the WTA. So there's that.
We did. So we were talking a lot about the race, right? Ningbo had a lot to do with the race, and you were following that one with glee. There's 2 spots left with 3 players in the mix. Mira Andreeva, Jasmine Paolini, and Elena Rybakina. Mira Andreeva lost early to Zhu Lin, so that's opened her up. Jasmine Paolini then overtook her by reaching the semi-finals. Lost to Elena Rybakina in that semi-final, and then Rybakina won the final today to close the gap up to like 15 points to Mira. So now it's basically like if Rybakina wins because it's now going to next week in Tokyo. If Rybakina wins a couple of matches, she's in the finals, which given the season she's had is pretty impressive how consistently in the mix she's been at every tournament. To get another trophy for me is like, that's a big deal for her to really turning around this form that she's in and returning her to being a top-level contender. That being said, she did beat Ekaterina Alexandrova in the final. She's had 4 500 finals this year, and she's lost 3 of them now. So can't catch a break. Also now looking pretty solid at being top 10.
Yeah. No, it's a lot of, there's just so many awesome stories happening right now in the WTA. Like, I just think it's just such a miss if you're not paying attention to what's going on the WTA right now. So yeah, Jasmine Paolini, they announced that she has qualified yesterday. They announced she qualified because Mira Andreeva is not going to be playing next week. So because she's not playing next week, she has kind of, it's now basically up to Elena Rybakina to create her own luck. Paolini is in, and basically Elena Rybakina has to win 3 matches next week in order to make it to the WTA finals. She's in as an alternate already. So if she can win 3 matches next week, she's in, and Mira will be the alternate. So that's kind of where we're at with the year-end finals with the WTA. And then as for Ekaterina Alexandrova, like, what a silent killer she is. I just remember, I have this photo, and I think I will insert it as well. I have this photo of her from the Charleston Open. And I remember reminiscing back to that time where I was like, she's such a quiet individual. Like, she doesn't, she's not that expressive. She doesn't make too much noise in terms of like what's going on around her. She just is like very introverted, but she does have just such a big game. And yeah, she's now a top 10 player, finally. She's been around for so long. And to have that many finals in a season, it's just consistency. She's playing consistent. Her problem, unfortunately, with this final, because I did then go back and watch, I didn't watch it live because it was happening in the middle of the night for me, but I went back and watched it. And she had that first set there, against Elena Rybakina. And Elena took a bathroom break after the first set. She came back and she won the second set 6-love. And it was because when Elena Rybakina is playing at her top level, I'm sorry, but there is no one that is beating Elena Rybakina. She just can hit this level of hitting serves, and the ball just hits the middle of her racket, and you're just like, why can't you play like this all the time? Why can't you just do this all the time? And I know it's not easy to do that all the time, but my goodness, she just could not miss. She could not miss in that second set, and it was so beautiful. Alexandrova came back in the third. There were just some shots in the third that were just awesome. But Nick, if you can go back and watch that match, it's worth it. It's worth it. That was a good one. That was a good
I did see the score, and I was like, that second set made me think maybe it was pretty straightforward from that point on.
No, that was a good match. That was a good It was not straightforward. It does. And see, and that's the thing about tennis, guys. I know we keep saying this. You see the score and you think, could be. No, that was good. That was a good little match there. So yes, Brussels men will continue. You know, that's probably going to be another battle there. They've had now two tiebreak sets, seeming like they'll have 3. What else happened this week?
So the only other tournament that happened this week was the WTA 50 in Osaka, which Leylah Fernandez won, second tournament win of the year. I did think she was looking good coming into this week because she's had some really tough scraps with some top players who weren't in this tournament. Naomi Osaka was the top seed, but withdrew with injury and has now ended her season halfway through the tournament. And that just left the door open for Fernandez to come through and take a second win of the season. And yeah, she is definitely one of those kind of... I always really like watching her because when she's on fire, she just brings so much energy and fun to everything. And it's always fun just seeing her determinedly fight for every single point. And she definitely did that to win the Osaka title this week. Probably not much more to say about that right now, but just to give you the update. And I think Leylah's looking good. Although it could be fun because if Leylah wins her opening match in Tokyo, she'd play Rybakina in round 2. So we'd end up with a shootout between the 2 winners this week in the second round. That's if Leylah wins her opener.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be fun. These girls, they're playing like right down to the wire, all of them. But long season. But yes, always great. You know, Fernandez 2 titles this year. Definitely another good season for her there. Again, just a couple of things that happened also this week. Super sad news for Holger Rune. He has ruptured his Achilles. I watched this match. He was playing a match against Hugo Humbert. It was the semifinals in Stockholm.
That can't be fun to see.
No. And it was so... He already had that leg hamstring taped or wrapped. So you don't know if it was because he was compensating for something else and then it happened, but it was rough. And immediately he knew something had popped. And, you know, from what his mom said and just what people are saying, it seems like this is an injury that could keep him out for close to over 9 months. That's the whole season. That's an entire season. You're hoping, at least I'm hoping... Huh?
Yeah, I was going to say, by that, at least it's gone during the off season where most of the most important healing is going to happen. So he's got 3 months until the Australian Open starts. He's probably not making that. That's too soon. So then it's like, he might just make Wimbledon if he rushes it. If he recovers really, really well, Wimbledon is possible. Otherwise, we're not seeing Holger until the North American hard courts. Just to put this in context for tennis fans who work by that calendar.
Yeah. He already announced that he's having surgery soon. So we at least know that's happening very shortly in order to put the Achilles back together. But yeah, that was rough. Another rough one. Haley Baptiste was in qualies in Tokyo and had to retire from her first round qualies match. And that basically puts an end to her season. Pretty unfortunate. I talked to her literally the night before. The interview is already out. It's the last episode of our On Tour series. I will link that in the description of this podcast episode in the show notes, where she talked about Tokyo being her last tournament before she started her off season. It's a really great conversation just about how her Asian swing has gone, her season in general, and also what she's hoping to accomplish in her off season. So really, really great episode with Haley. Really unfortunate to see that she had to retire from her quali match, and just wishing her the best for her off season and the coming season. So, what is coming up next? What is up next, Nick? What are we looking forward to next week?
It's another one of those you get a 500 weeks. So you've got 2 happening at the same time on the ATP Tour in Basel and in Vienna. We're really winding down the ATP Tour now. Like, whenever I hit the week where it's Basel and Vienna, I'm like, oh, it really is the end of the season. That's how I always feel. When it's cozy autumn vibes and everybody's warm inside playing or watching tennis. Not so much cozy autumn vibes in the women's side because they're still in Asia. We've got the Tokyo 500s we've been talking about. and the Guangzhou 250, which, has got a few Grand Pass favourites in that one, but no big players. Tokyo 500's got Rybakina, and it's going to be the top seed because Paulini's literally just pulled out.
Ooh, there you go.
Literally, as we've been recording, I think as we've been recording, it's been announced that she's pulled out. So Rebecca's the top seed, Alexandrova's the second seed, and we're going to be watching to see what she can do. Victoria Mboko is also playing that week. She's now been elevated into a seeded spot. If you want to know who's playing on the men's side, then Valentin Vacherot is back, except he's playing Taylor Fritz in his first match in Basel. We will see what Rude, the indoor king, can do against the big serves of Fritz and Shelton, who are taking part. And in Vienna, Daniel Medvedev is hoping to continue his winning streak, but he's going to have to deal with Yannick Sinner because he's playing Vienna. Everyone's going to have to deal with Yannick Sinner. So we're not necessarily going to hand him the trophy because we did that in Shanghai and look what happened. But let's see if he's back.
Yeah. Let's see how it goes. It is time. It is time for the player of the fortnight. It is time. And I'll start this time because I think it's pretty easy. And we've talked about him ad nauseum. Ad nauseum. We actually have a video coming out today about this player. So I think it's going to be quick. Valentin Vacherot. There is no other one who we can pick to be the player of the fortnight. Thank you for reminding me about him, Nick, because I was racking my brain about who would be the player of the fortnight. And then, of course, I was like, well, Valentin Vacherot. It feels almost like it happened a month ago, but it was only last week. Valentin Vacherot came from qualies to the title at the Shanghai Masters. He was ranked 204 in the world. He's now ranked 40 in the world. His entire world has changed. To put this into context, guys, he has never played. Well, I don't know. I want to correct myself. I don't know if he has never played the main draw, but I don't think he's ever played the main draw of a Grand Slam. He's only played qualies.
He hasn't.
Of a Grand Slam. He couldn't even get into Masters level events. He just hasn't had a real calendar before. He was on the Nothing Major podcast yesterday, and I watched the episode. Really, really great watch. I will link that episode in the description of this podcast. But he was just talking about how it's going to be so different for him next season and this is actually a very interesting topic, probably when we talk about schedules and stuff, where he said before, when he had to schedule for challengers, because that's what the level he was at, he says like sometimes there are like 6 different challengers all over the world. And it's like, which one do you pick? Where do you go? And he says now it's completely different. When you're ranked 40 in the world, you can get into all the Masters events. You can get into all of the Grand Slams with direct entry. And you can just, slot those all into your calendar. And then you can then pick, okay, I'll go to this 250, or I'll go into this 500, or I'll go to this 500. It's just completely different. And he gets to do that for an entire year. It's really funny, too, because, of course, everyone's talking now about, he's coming from 204 in the world. Can he keep that level? Is he just going to drop right back down to being 204 in the world? And I will give you this quote from his coach, who happens to be his half-brother. Apparently, he's related to every French player ever. I feel like every time there's another relative that pops out of nowhere. But his coach said, when Valentin plays as the favorite, he tends to just want to put the ball in. He doesn't play aggressive. He just puts the ball in and, just hits back and forth. But when he plays a top player and he's the underdog, that's when he truly plays his game and he plays aggressive. And that's what we saw in Shanghai. So if he plays a full season as the underdog that he still is, I don't know. I think he has a chance. I think he has a chance to stay where he is right now. And wouldn't that be cool? So Valentin Vacherot is my player of the fortnight.
That's got to make that first round with Taylor Fritz and Basel even more tasty.
Oh, I'm watching that. Oh, I'm going to watch that. I'm so sorry, Taylor Fritz.
I will if I can. That. Yeah, sorry for it. I don't know if I can, It's going to depend on what it clashes with my work schedule, but
Yeah.
we will see. That's definitely going to be the one that I'm going to want to know the results of as soon as possible. Well, I think we're both doing well at reminding each other about people for players of the fortnight, because I reminded Anastasia about Valentin Vacherot, and she reminded me of my player of the fortnight, because I was just doing a fun exercise, which I don't know will ever come out or anything like that, but I was trying to do, what if Ground Pass did a Ground Pass finals, like the WTA finals or the ATP finals? And one of the players that kept on popping up on that list was McCartney Kessler. And I was like, okay, she's having a good week. She got to the quarterfinals in Ningbo. She lost to Alexandrova, but she beat Samsonova. She beat Kenin as well. Like, she's had a decent week. And I messaged Anastasia during the week. And I was like, why have I not picked McCartney Kessler as player of the fortnight before? And the answer is because McCartney Kessler always peaks when someone else peaks. I think McCartney Kessler peaked. I think I kind of passed over her winning Hobart earlier in the year because I can't remember when we recorded our episodes, but I think it was either out of sequence. And so our next episode was after the Australian Open, by which point the Australian Open had happened. Or we were all very caught up in Gao Jinyu's exploits in the United Cup, which is why she got it. And then she wins Nottingham the week after Tatiana Maria won Queens, and everyone was just like, Tatiana Maria was just like the story of pretty much tennis for like at least a week. McCartney Kessler just never peaks at the right time. And it's happened again because basically McCartney, you've got to time things right, because you deserve player of the fortnight, but it's just the timing's never quite fit right, because I have to give it to Tereza Valentova. Like, Anastasia said, yeah, but she's obvious. So if you don't know who Tereza Valentova is, get used to hearing her name. She's an 18-year-old Czech player, won the Junior French Open last year, and then caused a bit of a stir because she got Coco Gauff in the first round of the Senior French Open this year. And I thought put up a decent match of it. Yes, Gauff's experience and shone through quite a lot. But yeah, the Czechs have produced another talent, and Valentova scrapped her way to the Osaka final this week, got through some tough players and ended up losing to Leylah Fernandez in a 3-set final, but, gritted her way through what was a tough, after losing 6-love in the opening set, comes through and wins the next set 7-5, has a bit of fun with it. And I think she looked really fired up when she beat Jacqueline Christian to win the semi-finals, in her semi-final there. And yeah, this is not just a team talent that we could all be excited about, we'll see them grow. Valentova's here to fight. She's here to prove herself, and I think she's going to be doing that a lot more going into next year. So yeah, Tereza Valentova is my player of the fortnight, because you'll be seeing her on a Ground Pass for a little while longer, definitely in Australia. And I definitely, if you're in Australia, recommend going and checking her out, because she might not be a Ground Pass player for much longer if she keeps fighting like this.
Yep. Highly recommend going to her match at a Grand Slam. I think it was second round at the US Open. I was bored with the match I was at, and I asked our online friends, where should I go? Everyone pointed me to her match against Lucia Bronzetti. I went, and I was not disappointed. She won that match against Bronzetti, and it's still one of my favorite matches that I watched at the US Open this year. She's one to watch. Nick, Felix Auger-Aliassime is a breakup in the third. We're going to wrap up this episode. Guys, check in to see if he won the title in Brussels. Who knows? Because I think Felix Auger-Aliassime, this is his season. He loves indoor hard court. He is fighting to get to the year-end finals. He's had kind of a really great resurgence this end of season, so I think he does deserve it. But yeah, I don't know. What else can we say? This was a great episode. We did it.
Yeah, we did it. Always did it.
Yeah, we always do. Guys, thanks again for listening. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Again, leave in the comments, what do you think about exhibitions? What are your thoughts and feelings about them? Are you enjoying them? Are you loving them? Talk to us. Let us know. If you're listening to this on a podcast player of your choice, drop us a note. Tell us as well. Leave us a rating. It really helps with others discovering our podcast, and we greatly appreciate it. Thank you all, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye, guys.